I think you're muted.
Oh, here we go, Randy. You ready for this?
Hey, man, getting ready right now. We're going to go live. Here we go. Been 11 months. I feel like I'm getting ready for a mission.
Yeah, like it's something's about to go down, huh?
It just feels good to be back, but it's anticipation and excitement, and it's here we go. All right, hey everybody, welcome. Rennie Doyle podcast. We are back. We are back, and very excited. So, Oscar, what's happening?
Good. We're just here working it, Excited to be back. Excited to have you guys all. She's trying to hide, but look who I got here. Becky, come on in.
Becky. Yeah. Let me tell you before we even start, this today could happen. We've got a lot of stuff going on, and Oscar and Becky have been really busting their heinies to make this, to bring it back. We'll get into why we kind of took a break here in a second, but more importantly, we're just going to jump right into the topic. And before I do that, we're going to thank some people during this that we owe a lot of thanks to the last year. Is that these are people that are involved with our Air Force One project, but if you look at every one of these names, PNS, Dynabrade, the entire ATG group, with 3D, PNS Pro, High Tech, RBL. We got APEAKS, Dr. Color Chip, you were able. I mean, it's just the detailers, Roadmap, Buff and Shine, IK Sprayers, Stinger, CCI, Car Candy. We go down into, Grit Guard. It's amazing. Uber Detail. Oscar, take it from there because my old eyes are running out of space.
Yeah. Detail Inc., IGL, top tier supply in Miami. I'll actually be there tomorrow. So heading out there, Raw Point, Flex, Rack Top, and Ego with Flex. So definitely want to thank all the sponsors. I definitely want to thank Becky Live because she made all of this happen right here with all the sponsors.
She
so
did.
she's looking at me like, what?
Right. Well, all these companies are not just sponsors for events. These are partners. Um, these are partners in our entire lives and everything we do here in the shop in the training center behind me. And our 5 days and 1 days, we're having a micro event tomorrow down down with Carlos and Uni, at Uber Detail in Corona, California. We got five more of those events, four or five more of those events throughout the rest of the year. We got a lot going on, and so we just, we really rely on the products and services that these companies provide, and we can't do without them. We just can't do without them. So with that, welcome back. We took a little bit of a break, and we to segue into new opportunities, and grow our current offerings. We signed a multi-year agreement with ATG, which they bought out PNS and a lot of those brands I just mentioned. We jumped back into PPF and window tint training in house. We're expanding our micro events tomorrow. Big expansion on that. We're going to start offering some business mentoring and coaching events here shortly. You're going to see that start popping off this year. We just talked about that yesterday. It's a big goal. And again, I just want to thank Oscar and Becky for making this happen. All of our sponsors, I couldn't do it without them. PNS, Naturally Dynabrade. But I've got somebody really special here today, and she's going to come in and come on over, Diane. So this is my wife, Diane, and we wanted to take on this subject of turning setbacks into monumental successes. I think that when you go into setbacks, we've had a lot. I mean, we still do, and I want to talk about that. Setbacks aren't just when you're starting. It is, I think they get bigger and even maybe even a little angrier as you grow and as you succeed and those dollar amounts increase. And I think the key to us is that, if you're married, is that, this whole topic is really dear to my heart. And a lot of so-called trainers and mentors and influencers and coaches, they sugarcoat the realities. And what they put out there is that it's sunny every day and that, oh man, look at what I'm driving, look at this. And that's cool and all, but the dark side's not talked about enough. And maybe some people think I talk about it too much, but that's the big boogeyman. That's the 900-pound gorilla that's going to eat you up. And if you're married, is you got to listen up. Or if you're in a relationship, it's all about communication and us talking and sharing with each other. And I've had to share my dreams and visions, and sometimes, those haven't aligned. And I've either had to, we've talked about a relocation possibly, and for a year, my communication was awful. She's like, "Oh, I thought you wanted to go back and forth." I'm like, "No, man. If we relocate, I wasn't even communicating right." But the key to it, I think, how important has problem solving been for us?
Oh, it's instrumental in anything that we've done.
It is. And then, no matter what, we're dedicated to each other. And don't be afraid. We've had our challenges and had to go out there and get counseling and get a little help with it and everything else. But I wanted Diane to come on and just, this is a really important topic, is taking those fundamental, setbacks that are going to happen, and then the stuff that just isn't planned for. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But, she's going to come out and grade me today. She's going to sit off to the side and kind of grade me and see how I do it. It's been 11 months. So I hope we bring it to you. So thanks for being on, baby. I love you. All right. And so with that, here we go. So, it's making this happen today took a lot. And so it took a lot of patience from just happening. We wanted to bring this back out to you guys 10 months ago, but with a lot of moving parts, we just had to take and be real and just say, hey, we got to get everything back in control. We had a shift in staff. Becky came on a year ago, and just learning to produce this thing and bring it up takes a lot. Oscar's been a road warrior. The Mafia has taken a great deal of work. And so I'm just really happy to be here right now. We've got Air Force One coming up. We've got a paint correction clinics happening all over the place. Uber Detail tomorrow. Monterey's right around the corner. I just got done with 5 weeks. I traveled everything from locally to Canada to St. Louis the last 5 weekends. We just wrapped up a 5-day training last Friday. And so, is that a setback? Yeah, I don't like going like I did. I mean, but I had to, right? There's times that you have to. So now in my life is I'm back to where I was, let's say PNS double black, is I turn the afterburners on when needed. But unfortunately, a lot of y'all listening to this, you're on full afterburner all the time. And I think that's where Oscar is right now, and I get concerned. And the reason why is that, being almost 20 years older than him, is that I know at some point those exhaust tips are going to start burning off. And, what happens when you start burning out the exhaust and everything else is that, your plane starts coming apart. And so you got to be really careful. So many people think that slowbacks, they slow as you succeed. They start to get lighter, but in reality, setbacks continue even multiple times as you get more successful. And the way that you handle setbacks is going to be really important. And really, what that means is your mental and physical way you're handling it. What do I mean by that? Is that if you let it start eating you up, it's going to do exactly that. If you allow setbacks to take you away from keeping your physical strength up, of working out and so forth, which I've done multiple times throughout my career. I'm not in the best shape right now. I'm embarrassed about it. And here I am making that same mistake I made 20 years ago. I used to train so hard and it was so important to me. And then, something happens, either growth, which is really good, but sometimes we turn growth and we turn opportunity into a setback. And by the time you realize that you're 5 years in, you're going, God, I just gave up some of my health for my wealth. And now I'm going to spend some of my wealth to correct my health. And it's very common, and all too common, especially in blue collar entrepreneurs, is they jump in there and they start growing, and they don't see growth and opportunity as a setback. But a lot of times, when your well-being, when your mental and physical well-being is put at jeopardy, that's exactly what it is. It's a setback. You're just not seeing it because you're trading it for money, and that's a big mistake. And it's real easy for me to say that, right? People say that, well, you've arrived. No, you know what? I had it right a lot of my career where I had that sense of taking care of myself, both physically and mentally. And then at periods I give it up. You can't give that up. Is I was at my happiest points and my most successful points, and many times at the most profitable points when I took better care of myself, both physically and mentally. So drop the BS, because it's just not fact. And I know a lot of people say out there, hey, grind it, hustle, spend your 20s so you don't have to do it in your 30s and 40s. Man, there's no guarantee you're going to have your 30s and 40s. And if you do and you're all beat to crap, is what's it going to be worth? Is you've got to take and figure this thing out and be able to handle it. And a lot of times what we do, especially blue collar, let's be honest, we overspend. We don't know how to manage money. And so that lost control of our assets and our money comes in, and it starts being a major setback. So I'm going to jump into a little bit of where my setbacks came from at different points in life, because I want you I don't want to pity show or anything else. I'm really happy with where I came from, where I've been, and where I'm going. But I want to share with somebody, and I hope that our goal of this podcast has always been to reach one person. If we could take and make a difference in one person's life every single episode, then that accomplished my goal. If I can hit 100 people, that's unthinkable. And so that's why I talk about a lot of sensitive stuff. We're going to continue to do that. We're going to bring a lot of guests in as we come back, and no more breaks. We might have weeks off, but we're going to produce 40 plus of these a year, every single year, moving ahead. So, let's go over the setbacks. Is that I'll cover them with you, and that way you can kind of gauge it, and we can kind of share together and figure out ways to get the heck out of setbacks. I had to do it from a really young age. So I came from a broken home. What's that mean? Is we weren't broke when my dad took off, but we sure were after that. And I don't remember it. I don't remember ever. Well, matter of fact, I never saw my parents together. Never once did I ever see him in the same room. Never saw him talk on the phone. He was gone, and I've got a relationship with my dad now, and this isn't a hate on him. But it was the circumstance between him and my mom, and things got ugly. And I felt extreme guilt because I heard all these things going on, and I kind of felt like I was the fault. I was the issue because I had taken and was born, and it seemed like everything kind of came apart as that happened. Later in life, I found out it was already a mess. But that was a really big setback, and I had to take and figure out in kindergarten how to explain in a community that was primarily Latino, that all my friends had dads around, and here I am, this white kid that didn't have a dad around. And we didn't have shit. We were butt poor, man. But you know what? I figured out real quick. Most people don't care. They just don't care. And so, you know, that started my indication of, listen, a lot of things we think people have got eyes on, they don't. And you know, we got to get through that. Um, and then another setback is that, you know, I had a struggle in school, is that I had a learning disability, and they didn't call it that back then. They told my grandma straight out, I've shared this before, is that I was partially retarded, and that wasn't the case. It was ADD, and then I was diagnosed with being dyslexic, you know, and that was a major setback. Those were major, major setbacks that I had to deal with, and it was very, very ugly, and it was hard. It wasn't easy, and so I had to learn from a really, really young age, in fourth grade, that I had to learn how to bring communications into the forefront. I had to learn to communicate that I wasn't the person that people projected. That I wasn't the I wasn't I was in that class, a special ed class, but that didn't define who I was. What defined who I was me, of who I truly was. And the disability I had was an ability. It wasn't a disability. Is that it taught me to learn in a totally, totally different way. Is that even still today, I'll give you a good example of this, of going back to something I struggled with all the way back when I was a kid. Why is this important? Because I know there's people out there right now that have been diagnosed with those things. Maybe you weren't and you thought you were, or you struggle with this. But I was brought up on stage unannounced. I didn't know I was going to do this. It was at the last Mobile Tech, and they wanted me to read a script about the induction into the Hall of Fame for people getting inducted. A lot, it's even now, right now, is I've got big, wide open spaces on my notes. And a lot of what I do is I go through these notes. I sit up for an hour last night after everybody went to bed, and I kind of memorize where everything's at, because if I don't, I can't get through it. Because when I read things, the dyslexia sets in, and I read the sentence completely, sometimes backwards. I'll get to the middle of the sentence and put the middle of the sentence at the end. And so I get up there on stage and I went, oh boy, you know, this is not going to be easy. And people thought I was real emotional about who was being inducted. And I was. I cared a lot for those people and what they're coming into. It's an important step, getting in, and you know, being recognized by your peers in the industry, of being somebody that stood up for a career, not a lifetime. But what happened was I was nervous because I couldn't read it. And so I tried real hard. What I should have done, and this is a lesson, again, this was a setback. I was embarrassed. I should have got out there and said, hey guys, this is prepared. I can't do this. I'm dyslexic. I should have just owned it and said, I'm just gonna take and share what the Hall of Fame means to me. I had learned to do that. Why did I freeze up right then and there? Here, you know, at 58 years old at that time, why did I freeze up? Is because it was unexpected and it was a setback, and I got through it, but I wasn't myself. What's the point to that? Be yourself. You have got to take and be yourself. So another setback I had, so I get through that. And then in my 20s, my late 20s, I had made some serious money. I got in with the company and was making really good money. And I invested into a company, and 500K disappeared overnight before I was 30 years old. And mentally, I was broke. I know we had kids, we had, you know, we are trying to live the dream, and all of a sudden the hopes of ever getting that back was gone. And we were going into detailing because we saw the company that we were involved in was vaporizing before our eyes. So literally I went into detailing with nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. And we start rebuilding, and that's, again, Diane sitting right off here to my left. And she went to work at night, so I would detail during the day. I sold nuts and bolts at a hardware store during the mornings, and during the wintertime, and taught skiing. I did anything I had to do to survive. Whatever it did, is that and we had kids, and Diane was pregnant. And I mean, it was a setback. We just put our nose down. We had a meeting among us, right? And we just decided that we're going to go for it, right? Is that I could come back. We were living in Idaho. We just moved up there, and we'd been there for less than 2 years. And I decided I really wanted to make a go at this. And furthermore, I could go back to my company, make good money the rest of my life, and it was a great job. I had a good job, but I didn't want a job. I was an entrepreneur and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I came back to Diane and I said, look this is my vision. This is what I kind of got. What do you think? And she goes, let's make it happen. And so here's this, you know, this just gangster of love that I married that just jumps in there with me. And I'm coming home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon so she can go wait tables at a high-end restaurant. And she'd come home at 11 and I was back up at 6, going to the gym and then going and either going to work and then detailing and then coming home and repeat. We did that 4 or 5 days a week for 3 years to get off, to get the business off the ground. But here's the amazing thing is pretty soon the restaurant loved her, absolutely loved her. We got so much referral business from that early days of her working in a really fine dining establishment. What we saw as a survival tool ended up as being a building block for our businesses, because in 2001, all funded by detailing. And we started out with literally nothing. Nothing. We started out with nothing. But here we are just a couple of years into it. 2001, we launch another company in another industry and it starts taking off like crazy. And 9/11 happens just 3 or 4 months after we launch. And we're like, oh man. And this company was based, it was a transportation company. It was based off of tourism and business guests coming into Sun Valley, Idaho, where we lived. And, when 9/11 happened, the flights, for those that weren't around or to kind of recap on history, is that the airlines, I mean, everything shut down. The sky shut down. I mean, our country, we were going to war. Everything changed. I mean, at our little local airport, it was a very high risk airport because of the number of high-end clients, millionaires, billionaires coming in. So we had National Guard there for 3 years, is at the gates. And it became very evident right away that, oh boy, this is going to change everything. And we honestly didn't think that. The detailing company, believe it or not, was doing okay. The airlines with the commercial and then the private jet sector shutting down, it hurt us, but the automotive side was keeping us alive. But we figured, well, this new business is probably going to be gone. We'd invested probably about $100,000 into it with a couple fleet vehicles, a lot of time getting the licensing and approval from the cities and counties. And all of a sudden, this is where good communication. We had done one of our biggest clients that we had gone to as detailers, and we did a lot of their work for their clients and them, is we went to them with the proposal of starting this new business up, and they go, oh my God, we love it. There is no high-end transportation up here. Our clients need it. We need it. We'd love to see that happen. So we pushed forward. All of a sudden, a billionaire that runs this company gets a hold of us about a month after, I'm going to say in early to mid October of 2001, not even a month after 9/11, calls us and he says, look I'm going to send you guys a check for $50,000. 25,000 of that is going to be given to us as credit over this next year or two. The other 25,000 is to help you guys get through. We need you to stay around. Please don't lose your business. If we can be of more help, let us know. What the heck? I mean, we both looked at each other and we're crying because we put our heart and soul. We didn't have a whole lot of money at that time. It was $100,000, right, to invest. Some of that was on credit. The other was cash. We'd taken everything that we had made in detailing. My God, at that time, we weren't even a shop yet. We're still mobile in Sun Valley, Idaho, where it snows a lot. It's a ski town. That wasn't easy. But yet, here a company comes in because we are good communicators, because we offered outstanding customer service. We made relationships with these folks. That transpired into the people at the bottom taking and sending a message of encouragement to help us make it all the way to the top. And the founder and CEO, the actual founder's son, comes in and puts a rescue line out to us. That company went on to be very successful, and we sold it for a lot of money just 5 years later. I mean, 5 years later. So again, is that we didn't give up. We didn't quit. We're constantly looking for ways. We knew that we couldn't fleece off the detailing company anymore. Then we were at that point still, Diane was still working fine dining. I had given up my side job because I was doing both companies, but she was too. In the day, she's going out and slinging, high-end customers Gucci bags, and at night going to the restaurant. I'm going and working both, depending on the day, managing the businesses, working on the businesses, getting home, watching the kids, getting the kids ready, doing homework, getting them to bed, and then we get up the next day and repeat. And that happened for about 2 more years before we were able to kind of start just working on the businesses. But here's the other thing. Now we've got two tigers by the tail. Our businesses were going nuts, absolutely nuts. So much so that the transportation company had grown above what our abilities were. Is that we're a family. That was a 24/7 operation, 8 months out of the year. Is that we were taking calls in the middle of the night, 7 days a week, 8 months out of the year. And it just became too much. And so Diane and I are like, we come together again. Okay, here's a good problem. This is where I say that, you've got setbacks. That's a setback because we realized we can't keep doing this. It's going to destroy, our kids. It's going to destroy us. It was already putting stresses on our marriage and stresses on our kids. And we're making a lot of money, but we had a lot of staff. We were having staff issues. I mean, it was complete controlled chaos, and sometimes not even controlled. And all of a sudden, we had a private equity group come to us and make us an offer to buy the company out. We hadn't even decided to sell yet, and 5 months later, it was sold. So that was a good period. And we had some great years between there, and then '08 hits, right? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because we're going to get into some items below to where I'm going to give you some skill sets to deal with these setbacks, good, bad, or ugly. Is I'm going to give you some skill sets. So now the economy died. Yet within 24 months, our businesses were taken off because we went from having the detailing business and a transportation company to where we had started back in late '05, really in '06. But '05, I started to do training within detailing. I got more and more requests. And by 2010, that business is going like crazy. So much so in 2011, we had relocated. My mom got really sick. But here's what happened on the heels of 9/11, or actually just before. Ooh, my grandma raised me. She was a father figure. My mom was there, but she was pretty beat up for my dad. And right before 9/11, this is a woman that had survived the Great Depression. She had seen her husband go off to war in World War II. She had seen the Korean War. She watched the civil rights movements and the disgust that was going on there. And right before 9/11, she passed away. That was my anchor. And to this day, I'm really excited that she didn't see 9/11 because she'd seen so much tragedy that here we are facing that and survival, but we're dealing with healing of the loss of. That was my biggest fear growing up, was losing her. Now it happened. She's gone. In 2008, right, is that, we lost the dog. The economy goes down. My mom in 2010 is put on hospice. We're forced to move from Idaho that we loved, Haley, Idaho, back to California. And here's the blessing. It was a setback. I was beat up, man. It took me a couple years to get out of the beat up factor. I felt defeated. I felt like a failure. Even though we'd sold our businesses successfully, it just, that '08 hit me. We lost so much value and net worth, and I let it get to me. I learned at that point, you don't own anything. It owns you. All the bullshit that we call toys and all this, if it ain't paid for, it owns you. And I found that out that year. And so '08 hits, my mom's going down. She's not feeling good. Lost my grandma. And we moved back. My mom lived 9 more years. Us coming back, our businesses took off. We stayed. Why did things turn around for us? Because we didn't quit. We didn't know. This lady off to my left doesn't know what it is to quit. Her body's proof of it. Is that, she just had her 6th concussion. It's like the movie. What was that? What's your favorite with Mel Gibson? You know, Lethal Weapon. When him and his girlfriend are comparing scars, we compare battle wounds, right? Because she's so dang tough, and she's got more. She's got a lot more surgery. She's got a lot more metal in her body than I do. I've got one little piece, and she's got a whole lot, and replaced disc and everything else. We kept on top of it, everybody. We didn't stop. We didn't know. We had tenacity. You know, is resilience, is that we just didn't know what it was to give up, and we weren't going to give up. And so I wasn't going to give up on my mom. Leaving our home in Idaho that we loved, it was devastating. It was devastating to the kids, but it was devastating to me. It crushed me. But yet my wife pulled me out of that depression. My wife stayed with me. My wife, when I was going through counseling, responded to every push ahead I made. She made the same push ahead. And it was just amazing. And the next thing we know is my mom's out of hospice. She's not going to be on hospice. She didn't go back onto hospice until 2019, the year we lost her. Right? I mean, then COVID hits. I mean, so much. But guess what COVID did? For 92 days, our operation here was shut down. We went live. I can't tell you how many hundreds of times we put podcast on and live events to help people out because it was helping us. It was therapy. And we got through it, and our business blew up again because we had tenacity. We didn't quit on all of you. You didn't quit on us. And look where we all are now as an industry. Is COVID didn't hurt us. It built us up. So what keeps pulling us through setbacks? I'm going to ask you this right now. I'm going to share with you my top three. Okay. Is that this was really hard to go through. I really was looking at this last week going, what is the top three? I don't want to give you a long list. I want to give you a short list. And the number one thing was self-belief. Is that if I had every reason to doubt myself going back to fourth grade, and I had to learn how to talk and build relationships, and I've continued to do that. And it's sad because most people don't do that. A lot of entrepreneurs, their self-belief and their ability to build relationships is really limited because they're putting so much effort into building their skill set up and making money. They don't look at building themselves out. And then they don't totally believe. I've struggled with that my whole life. I always knew I could do it, but I didn't believe I deserved it. And I still believe with the I don't deserve it part. I fight with that, but I can talk myself into knowing that I do deserve it. But it's taken me a lifetime to get there. But more so, I had self-belief in my ability and not cockiness. I just knew that I was going to be a dog with a bone, and I was going to chew every piece of meat off that, and I was going to keep chewing that bone until I got to the bone marrow, and I would dissolve that bone if it took me a lifetime. And that's the tenacity you have to have. Number two, this is big, is I faced the fact that the only safety net that I had was myself, and that any major screw up could be the death to my dream. And I've never said this out loud, is that I knew, even when Diane and I got married, is that I was a safety net, not now, just for me. I was a safety net for her, the kids. As we started expanding the Detail Mafia, if I did something stupid, it wasn't just the death of my dreams, it was the death of hundreds of people. As we started building up Double Black and now Dynabraid, if I failed, it was the death to families' ability to provide, hundreds and hundreds of families that rely on us going out and doing the right things. And so you've got to face that reality that what's your safety net? So many people now look at government or their families as safety net. Man, that's the worst thing you could do, because you know what? You're setting yourself up to fail. Is because if you think you've got a safety net, you're going to use that safety net, and you can't. That safety net can't be there. Is cut that safety net and go for it. And then three is risks didn't and don't scare me. Is that I'll get spooked. I'm going to analyze it. And so I've gotten really good at risk assessment. And I do SWOT analysis, which means strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I do that for everything. When we were packing up my mom's house, our kids were going through and they found a SWOT analysis that I'd done on my relationship with Diane. Is that I was falling for her way fast. And it kind of was like, okay, is this healthy? And on that analysis, just like I did with business and opportunities, is I looked at her strengths, and there was a long list. And then I looked at her weaknesses, and it was a short list. And I looked at the opportunities of building a life with this amazing human, and it was a long list. And then I looked at the threats, and it was a short list. And I went, wow, how could I not just jump into it and let this love grow? Because it was happening so fast. But I learned at a very young age is to parachute down from a cuckoo land idea and face realities very, very quickly. His crazy ideas were vetted and covered with mentors and coaches. And Becky and Oscar yesterday, we were doing the test run, and I made an announcement. I was having a special guest on. They're like, where the hell did this come from? And I went in and told Diane, hey, you're going to come on the podcast tomorrow because I want you to kind of hear this out and make sure that I'm giving the right input. And I'm going to ask her to come back up here when we're done and just kind of give kind of a closing, of what she's got to hearing me, because I didn't kind of cover a lot of this. So what's been my responses to some pretty big challenges? And these are the things that I'm not proud of. These are the things that the first one, fear, is good. I was scared. I was nervous. But here's the thing about fear. Fear is one of an incredible emotion. Fear can save you or it can kill you. If you can harness fear and control fear, it is an amazing emotion to have. Anger is, I was still angry about things that happened in my past. You have got to drop that shit. That is toxic. Is things that happened yesterday or 4 decades ago, it doesn't matter. Get rid of it. And then Diane taught me something amazing about worry. Is she has a saying, don't borrow trouble. And so many times in my life, I would look at things and the sky was going to fall. And my wife would look at me and she'd say, don't borrow this trouble. It's not going to happen yet. And 9 out of 10 times it didn't. That worry was useless. And to this day now, even yesterday, I had kind of a workup about a subject, and I went out and it was one little setback after another. I was pretty worked up. I came back in. I said, you know what? Probably in 2 weeks, this isn't going to be an issue. Probably in 48 hours, it's going to be minimalized. And if it worst case scenario, what's it going to do to me? And the answer was nothing. It's nothing that's going to really affect me long term. It's a bummer, but are bummers worth the worry? And the answer is no. So all of the above did nothing but slow me down. Fear. If you're fearful and you're not paralysis by analysis and you just keep on, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. No, just pull the trigger. And a lot of times I pull the trigger way too quick, but I'm sensible enough to pull the first squeeze to where I feel that if you shoot, you're going to know what I'm saying, especially on the Glock. You pull that first round, you don't have to release the trigger all the way. You only have to do about a quarter release, and then you pull. It's a shorter pull from there on. I'll pull that trigger, but I don't release the trigger all the way out. And before I pull another round, I'm going to take and analyze, okay, is this a good idea? And if it is, man, I start pulling rounds through it. If it's not, then I back away. So here's what I want to talk about. I'm going to give you guys some useful tools, and we're going to end this with giving you some really good hints on how to handle setbacks, good, bad, or indifferent, and big ones. So every big win starts with hurdles. Is every time that you've got a setback, look at it as a learning opportunity, a stepping stone instead of a roadblock. Is so many people see a huge wall of rock in front of them when they have a setback. But honestly, collapse that wall and use it as a stairway. Is you can't get over concerned with it. You're going to get through it. We've got a limited number of years on here. Don't waste it with looking at those hurdles and getting caught up in them and tripping over them. Analyze every single time you got a setback. Analyze that setback. What went wrong? Take a clear, honest look at the situation and identify the root reasons why it went wrong and learn from those mistakes. But then again, look what you can turn into it to turn that wrong into a right. There's the gold in the pot right there. Is that so many people will take and look at a mistake or a setback and they don't look for the gold. They just look for the agony, and they strategize and they ponder and they worry about all the agony. Don't look at that. Look at what you can turn it into, not what it. If you're going to turn it into mush, it's going to be mush. If you're going to turn it into gold, it's going to be gold. That's up to you. It's all stinking thinking and the way you look at it. And adjust your strategy. Come back and say, well, that didn't work, and then look at it and do a SWOT analysis. On every. I do a SWOT analysis on everything. I do a SWOT analysis probably 10 times a month. I do a lot of mind mapping. We'll get into that. We're going to actually bring somebody on that I really enjoy, that I've learned a lot from mind mapping in a future episode. But you've got to adjust your strategy. If something didn't work, why didn't it work? And then how can you stay away from that in future endeavors to make it work? And then stay resilient. Stay persistent. Is you can let the setback let you go, but you can't sleep on it. The next day it's got to be gone. Get it out of your head. If I can leave you with one thing, that would probably be it right there. We got several other things, but if you have a setback, that next day when you wake up, that setback, you can't wake up with that on your mind. Is you've got to look at forward progress versus backward motion. Is you've got to stop. Next is seek support and guidance. Is you've got to have amazing teammates, coaches, peers, mentors around you that you can go to and say, look, this is what went down. How do I handle this? What do I do? Am I seeing this with good eyes or bad eyes? Unless somebody that's older than you and wiser than you, not maybe age-wise, but experience-wise. The last thing you want to do is take it to friends that don't have any common interests with you. If they're not entrepreneurs or they're working for somebody, don't go to them. Even if they got so many people with college degrees, right? I hear that all the time. But if they don't have real world experience in running a business and being successful, why are you going to go to them? You need to be going to people that are living the life and will be honest with you, and they're honest with their own setbacks. Because if anybody's just giving you the shiny part of success, I'm running away from that person, because you know what? They need to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if they're not willing to do that, then they're not being forthcoming and truthful with you. And then reframe from your mindset. Get out of your own mind. Is that you've got to retrain yourself to pivot. Is you've got to it's a powerful opportunity to get creative, to learn growth and innovation, to get yourself out of a situation. And take and journal this thing. How am I digging myself out? I'll tell you, there's 1,000 different ways, but it's going to come down to probably 6. And so you got to get your mindset in the right place. And again, going back up top, is don't wake up with that same mindset the next day. If you allow yourself to poison your mind after there's been a setback, is that you're not going to get out of that setback. If you wake up the next day with the mindset that, hey, this thing is going to be in the rearview mirror in days, it's going to be in the rearview mirror in days. And the rewards are going to be unimaginable, because you just learned and taught yourself and learned from others how to take and get yourself out of situations. And then this is a big one too, is celebrate those small wins. Is that, so many people look for the big win. They want to be famous. They want 10,000 followers. No, be happy when you got 35. Be happy when you get to 50. Be happy when you get the first $200, job. Be happy when you buy that tiny house. Be happy when you buy your mobile home. Be happy with if you came from nothing and you just bought a mobile home or a condo or something like that. You might be looking at your friends, all they own houses. Who cares? They didn't have the same journey as you. Celebrate everything that you win, every single thing that you've accomplished. Celebrate, and then turn around and thank the people you need to thank. That's really important. And then turn your comeback into your legacy. This is huge. Is that you are going to take and look at how many. If you look at the dominating sports stars, Shaquille O'Neal right now has got he's working with Reebok, and there's a great commentary on that on, I believe, Netflix, and I'm watching it right now, about bringing Reebok back. And he talks about, this is going to be difficult. It's going to take a lot. And here's a guy, he doesn't need that. Yeah, he does. That's who we are, because that's who he is that you need that, and you need it desperately, absolutely desperately. And if you don't have that drive and ambition, is that he's got that, because can you imagine him coming up? I don't care how big he is or tall he is. He made it in the NBA. And that took skills. And not only that, but Shaq is everywhere. It's like Snoop Dogg. He's everywhere. And he's up in his years. You'd think that at this stage, he kind of disappeared. No, he's still pushing forward. As you take and your legacy is built, you're going to learn this, but you've got to turn around and teach other people how to get out of their headspace when there's setbacks, because they're going to have them. And even Shaquille O'Neal, if you talk to him right now, if you brought up, Michael Jordan, what kind of setbacks do they have in their life daily? You lose somebody, you go through a divorce, you have a child that's having a problem that's really struggling. Those things are going to happen. Now, those are all part of setbacks. Is you've got setbacks with economy that you can't control. Those are setbacks we can't control. You just can't control it. And some setbacks are going to be out of control, but how do you handle it? What's your mindset? How do you go into protective mode over your assets so you don't squander your assets where you keep your assets? That's a big part of it. So here's some non-traditional actions that made massive impacts in our lives. And this is where I'm going to bring Diane up at the end of this, is that faith. If you don't have faith in a higher power, I don't fear a person, a man or a woman with a different faith than me. I applaud it. I fear, or I kind of feel bad when a person doesn't have faith in a higher power, because I know what that faith brings to my life. And then faith in yourself, faith in your spouse, faith in the people around you, faith in your team, faith in your mission, faith in your dreams, faith in your execution, faith in your abilities. You've got to have all of that. Faith is such a magical part. In search and rescue, we have this thing called will to survive. And we'll have very wealthy people that have got everything, but they've never had to fight for anything, and they die because their will to survive, they haven't had to develop it. Where you have this blue collar welder that is in a really horrible, much worse situation than the rich person. And that individual has come up through the ranks by having grit, tenacity, and just being ornery and having no safety net. And yet they survived their ordeal. Is you've got to have that will to survive. And then being brutally honest with yourself and brutally honest with myself is you've got to take and analyze, where's your head? Are you doing the right things? Is this going to be brutal? Is this smart? Is this a dumb move? Is you've got to learn to be your own best and worst enemy. And then projection is how do you project success in your life? If you don't think you deserve it, you're right. You're not. You won't. Is that you've got to see yourself arriving at where you want to go. Now, you've also got to go back to being brutally honest with yourself. And a lot of people aren't. Is that we've got so many people right now that want to be influencers. How about just influencing your own self and your own family for a while? How about worrying about, the money you're making? How about being what you are? How about making money at what you do? And then slowly working up the other part. That's exactly what we did. Also, quitting is never an option. You don't quit. You don't quit. You fail, your company's really struggling, you go back, you get a job, you keep that as your part-time until it's back to being your full-time. Simple as that. You just can't quit. And then changing up your inner words to yourself. Stop talking bad about yourself aloud or silently. Don't tease yourself, especially in front of others, because that's going to show and project a weakness, and other people are going to take advantage of that. I've experienced that even in recent times, is that I was so kind that people took advantage of it. And and I let it happen. I let people slowly integrate into my world and slowly take a piece of my world away. That doesn't happen. Is that you've got to know who you are, and what your mission is. And then you don't talk badly about yourself. And then be real with your realities, but willing to change those realities. If I stuck back what the beginning of my life is a vice principal, Mrs. Molina, I'd be exactly what she said I was going to be. And that was a nothing. That I was going to barely be able to hold a job, that I wasn't going to amount to anything. And I remember when I wrote my book, I took that book down to Grant School on a visit down here, and I left it for Mrs. Molina. And I said, in the book, from the kid that would be nothing, you told me I'd be nothing, you're a liar. And I became something. And so, hey, next week, we're going to talk about skill sets, 4 skill sets that most small businesses fail to master that are game changers. And so we're going to go over these items, probably a tidbit more. But Diane, come on up for a second. Is that we're going to close it out with her. We'll close it out with Oscar and Becky a little bit, and then we're going to get you guys on your way. And I'm so excited to be back. So what she's limping around on a bad knee. So sorry. So what, you just heard this. What would be your, for the young, we're going to reach out. We've been single, right, in our lives, but we've been married for over half of Diane's life and right almost at half of my life right now. So do the couples out there. I know we deal with that a lot. I got 2 messages last week before Father's Day that both of them made me cry. Regina was one of them. I didn't make it public because Sergio sent me one that was really touching. I went public with that one, but Regina's a young lady, and I'm going to keep that one. She's got a wonderful, wonderful partner. And what would you say, to couples either just getting their start or way on the way, or what would you end with?
Communicate, and actually communicate. Communication, you have to listen in addition to talk. And I think that so many people, they're thinking about the next thing they're going to say and they don't actually listen. And so you got to talk, and you got to make sure that you're clear, the other person's clear, and you understand both ways.
Well, and I think sharing your dreams too. I think, sharing your dreams. We had a, situation in our marriage where I thought Diane wanted to stay home with the kids, and she thought I wanted her to stay home with the kids. But in reality, I would have really liked her to gone back to work in a full-time career that she was meant to, that she went to school, went to college for. But both of us weren't communicating that. And it would have made my life far easier financially, the weight on me. And it would, I think, made her life a lot more valuable to her own being, right? And we didn't communicate that very well. We did later, but we kind of oopsed on that one. So well, thank you. And then Oscar, you guys, you and Becky, got anything to kind of add in here before we depart?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot, but one thing I got to say is embrace the suck. Embrace the suck. Everyone struggles, everyone falls. Really just comes down to how you bounce back. And that's kind of how I see people. I see a lot of people in this industry, people that I've seen it while I'm traveling, that, they have setbacks and they just want to set themselves on that setback and live off that setback and just complain the whole time. I can't be around people like that. It's how you come back. And the way that I see is you're always going to come back stronger. What doesn't kill you will make you stronger. And setbacks you're going to feel like you want to die. It's killing you inside, but get through it, fight through it, reach out to someone to your right, to your left, your battle buddy, and get that help to get you back on your feet. And I think if you're in that situation now, reach out to us, reach out to Randy, myself, Becky, Diane. No matter who you are, where you're at, just reach out. We'll help you get through this. Everyone's got setbacks, but everyone has to come back.
Yeah, well said. Becky, got anything to add?
Just know that we're always here. Setbacks will always happen, and we will be here to help you if you need, but just stay strong and we'll just work through it. Make it happen. That's what entrepreneurs do. We just make it happen.
Yeah, and you guys have both witnessed your own, setbacks in life, right? And so I think a lot of this we'll kind of do an after action report on this and see how we did, on this. And we're always trying to improve. And, if you'd like more information on, we'll do a little sales thing here is, first off, if you've enjoyed this, share it, is that we don't have technical sponsors for this. We don't have commercials. We don't put a lot of stuff in there. Is that the best way that you can pay us back for enjoying this broadcast and this podcast is to share it and tell people about it. Is that we want to change lives. That's why we talk about what we talk about. And with that, we think that we change a lot of lives through this training center. We had 4 gentlemen here last week, and it was an incredible week, about 64 hours. And I was blown away. I mean, the results that these men, they're all new or relatively new, brand new or relatively new to the industry. And not just in the technical abilities they walked away with, but the sensibilities of life that they walked away with. So that's what we love to add into that 60 plus hours of training. So we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to reach out, it's Becky at detailingsuccess.com. We're just like you guys. We've got busy schedules and busy lives. Oscar is he might as well have I think he just needs to travel with an airline seat underneath him right now, in his life, because he's flying more than anybody I know at this current moment. And I'm just glad it's you, buddy, and not me.
Hey, glad to do it. Still enjoying the hunt, so it's a good thing.
There you go. Right on. Hey, thanks everybody. We'll be back next week. Again, great topic. Thanks, Diane, for coming in. Becky and Oscar, thanks for making this happen. I'm so excited to have this back. We are back. We'll talk to you next time. We'll see you.
All right, guys. You guys have a good day.
See ya.